I think if you grow up in this area, you're kind of have that reliance of I'm going to go to my friends and family because it's all like, let's call it like low hanging fruit.
Yeah. And we have them around here, and maybe they're just like us. They've been here
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah. And so
you have that trust.
it's like that's kind of like a crutch almost.
Yeah.
That you use, like, oh, well, you can fall back. Oh, well, I know people. You have like that instant network to kind of like build yourself on.
Yep.
When you're new, like someone's coming into town, you don't have that. So you really, I think, have the ability to like do everything.
Welcome to the podcast dedicated to real estate, insurance, and everything in between. Join us as we take you along our own brokerage building journeys with additional wisdom from our network of business experts. Welcome to Bricks and Risk. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Bricks and Risk. I'm Tim Garrity.
And I'm Sean Mooney. Today's topic, Tim, is
Tell me.
Building your network and finding your centers of influence.
Okay.
So let's tee it up.
All right, I'll dive into this. So centers of influence, or sphere of influence as we call it in real estate. A lot of people say your SOI.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Not your COI.
COI.
That's some insurance stuff right
SOI.
there. So sphere of influence in my world is, it can be looked at a couple different ways. You can have high quality sphere of influence to start, or you can just have anyone and everyone, which is more about quantity. Most big companies in real estate, I find, go with more of the quantity approach over the quality and just think, a lot of people, that's awesome. Let's go after those people. I've always done it a little bit different. So when let's go back to myself as an agent. When I started, and I think when I started initially, I had like somewhere around like 500 contacts.
Yep.
And I was like, this is my SOI. This is my sphere of influence. So with those 500 people, I looked at the beginning. I'm like, how do I want to reach out to these guys and girls? Do I want to be that guy that makes phone calls and checks in with everyone, which a lot of big companies tell you to do that? Do I want to text message them? Do I want to email them? I think for me with my SOI in the beginning, my first step was to lead with value, not to just reach out and say, I'm a real estate agent. Do you know anyone? Do you have a need? Which is what a lot of people try and teach you to do.
So when you're saying sphere of influence, you're saying anyone and everyone that I know? Is that how you would define it?
Yeah, in the beginning, how I hit it up was really those 500 people. So it was anyone and everyone. So all the cell phones and emails that I had when I started, that's how I looked at my SOI. And we can dive into how it changed as I went. But let's start with that in the beginning. So when I had that leading with value, the way I looked at that was I want to email my SOI because it's cheap, it's efficient. Like everyone checks their email all day, every day. It's less personal. I feel like when you text someone, it's like sometimes it's their personal space. And they're like, yo, I don't want business in my text messages. It's where I like check in with people. And the phone in today's day and age, in 2023, honestly, is like super intrusive. So even back then I said, email's my method. So I took my SOI. I started emailing a monthly newsletter with valuable content. It was blog posts that I did. I used to share some recipes. I used to do a thing called Tim's Preferred Partners, where I talked about some of the business contacts that I worked with. And I'm like giving out their information, telling my audience why they should work with them. I used to share listings. So with my SOI in the beginning, I took that 500 and I put them on a regular email drip campaign.
Was there an expectation sending out that list of what you might hear back, or what?
Yeah, what I might get out of it?
Yeah. Like what, with just, or was it just blanketing this amount of people and just more of a recognition to say, hey, I'm Tim, I'm a realtor, this is what I do, hit me up.
So in the beginning with my SOI, I did a few different things. Like email was probably the backbone of my reaching out to them and letting them know that I'm in real estate. Like, here's what I focus on. here's what I know, here are the people I know. So that's really how I started in the beginning. And then again, you're going to have natural networking. So like getting together with friends and family, going to barbecues, weddings, baptisms, bar mitzvahs, all this stuff. There's lots of things that happen that you're just going to naturally socialize with your sphere of influence. I would take also like my high trust people in my sphere of influence. So like insurance, for example, you and I would get together for like beers every now and again. We get together for coffee. Like we'd introduce each other to other people where all three of us would get together. So that was like another way I kind of hit up my SOI. With the email itself, what I did is I pretty much just followed like industry averages. Like you should be getting somewhere, I don't remember the exact numbers, but maybe around like 20% open rate. And then you want to get clicked through in like, the 3 to 5% range or something like they're actually clicking on the blog post or actually clicking on the listing or the recipe or the contact. And I looked at that as like where our businesses differ is that you have to do more transactions with clients to get to a certain dollar amount. So like more policies have to be written. In real estate, I might only have to do 1 or 2 a month.
Yep.
So it's less about, it's not that you don't want to have conversion, you do, but you start looking at conversion in different ways and like more of the in-person stuff, in my opinion, stuff like that, or referrals, like where did that deal come from, and like tracking things. But how about with you? Like, so your center of influence in your world, tell me about that.
So I've always looked at it when you say that it's weird because it's a totally different kind of definition as to how I perceive it or how I define it with people that we interact with. And the way I've always looked at it was centers of influence, meaning not like a client per se, but more so someone that has the ability to steer business your way.
Yeah, almost like business builders.
Yeah, exactly. So the way we look at it is like, all right, who are your centers of influence? Your centers of influence are attorneys, accountants, business owners, those types of people that you can get in front of, that you can build a relationship with, that can influence others and direct people in towards your business.
So how did you start hitting up when you started with your COI? When you started doing that?
Which is funny because COI is actually a certificate of insurance, which is like a very standard insurance term.
Nice.
For all you insurance nerds out there.
I have one right next to me. But yeah, tell me, like, how did you hit up those people in the beginning? Like, what was your method? Mine was email. That was really what I liked doing. Like, what was yours?
So I did a lot of in-person to try to build out my center of influence. And that is predominantly like those business types that I described, trying to meet them and in all kinds of ways, asking for like, oh, who does your accounting, and trying to speak to someone who can get you in your foot in the door with that type of business owner.
So for your in-person, was it more like, let's get a cup of coffee, let's get lunch, let's get beers, all the above?
Well, initially it was different networking groups. We've done one in the past.
NWPN.
Chamber of Commerce was one. We had a separate different business association that I climbed the ranks in, became the president of this business association.
Still doing that today?
No. But nonetheless, it was a great opportunity to be in front of business owners where you could network and tell them what you do for a living and how you help other people, and just try to kind of make those and build and foster those relationships in the hopes that, they need an insurance person one day. And, oh, Sean, we know Sean. Yeah. There's a relationship there.
That's awesome.
And I think really finding, I got off a call earlier today, actually, with a business banker who we were helping close on a building on Friday. And it was last minute thing where they're kind of scrambling, and he reached out to someone that I knew and said, hey, I'm really jammed up on this, property. We're going to settlement.
Yeah.
And we're still like 11th hour scrambling to get this deal done. And reached out to a mutual friend of ours and referred us to them, and like lickety split, we got this done for them.
Nice.
And the insured was like, wow.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
How'd you do that?
They literally had been working this deal for months.
Wow.
And just out of the blue, kind of like asked the mutual friend, hey, do you know anybody? And then we kind of like jumped in and got the deal done, and allowed them to close. But I think the important part was, okay, in this process, I was dealing with the banker, and he does a lot of these finance deals for these business owners that are buying different practices and stuff like that. So I reached out afterwards as a follow-up. Hey, how did it go with closing?
Yeah.
Just as kind of like a routine follow-up. And, settlement was great. Everything worked awesome. Thanks for your help.
Great.
And then I said to him, I said, hey, we come across these a lot, and we're able to help a lot of these business owners that are in a similar situation.
Yeah. So you kind of took that and said, how do I start building like more of a relationship with you?
Yep.
Because we like under promised and completely over delivered.
Totally.
And now I'm going to add you to my COI.
Yep.
Because I think you and I should talk a little bit more, maybe do some more in person, so that you can keep, again, you're going to build a rapport. You're going to build a relationship naturally that way, but you have a really good starting point. You have an anchor of being like,
we delivered.
Yeah, they were SOL and you made it happen. And they're like, wow, that was impressive. So now you're like, okay, now I'm going to cultivate that.
Yep.
Because I don't know them. Like, how I know them is I just bailed them out and delivered. So now I want to put them in my COI, that let them know that I'm reliable, that I'm in a high trust field, which you are. And anytime you or anyone else needs a quote or gets in a jam or anything, like, you're not just saying every time you get in a jam, like, talk to me, but you are saying like, drop my name to more people because you saw what I could do. Hey everyone, this is Tim, your favorite Bricks and Risk co-host, but don't tell Sean. I hope you're enjoying this episode, and I'll get right back to it in a moment. Our audience grows through word of mouth, so if you would please take a moment of your time and give us a review on the platform you're on, that would be fantastic. Please also help spread the BNR word by sharing your favorite episode with a friend. We greatly appreciate your time and trust. Now, back to the show.
Well, it's funny. He was like, all right, so like, what states do you do insurance in? Because I'm in this group of bankers that run nationally, and we're kind of in this, not a text chain, but, some sort of internal communication where they discuss things. And he's like, these things happen all the time. And, I'll be talking to this banker out in Minnesota, and he's like, would you be able to do that? And I was like, no, that's not something we can do. Right. But we do, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, like anytime this comes up, and they overlap. So some guys do some states, he does Ohio, Pennsylvania, and another agent that's Delaware, Maryland.
Yeah.
And so he's like, oh, well, I can bring you in to this group chain, and I can just take 4 of these people that cover that area.
Okay.
And you'd be a great resource for some of these guys, because we're constantly getting tripped up on this same exact scenario that, you just delivered on. So again, getting your foot in the door, delivering, building that relationship, showing them that you can, really provide a service.
Yep.
And then them bringing in other people for you to help.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And, I'll go back to what I was sharing initially, where it's like, hey, I got these 500 people, which now I think is a list of maybe like 6,500, like 7,000 people I have in my own contacts. Mm-hmm. They're more or less just kind of like merged in with everyone we have as a company.
Yeah.
And then we have company drip marketing that we do. So we do monthly email newsletter, we do quarterly reports, we do fall tips, we do spring tips, we do a happy home anniversary. So we have I think it's like 19 touch points through drip.
Yeah.
But these days, now that I have the most important people, my business builders, like you're talking about, like high trust people, like you said, business owners, accountants, financial planners, attorneys, all these relationships that I have where their networks have super high trust in them because they're in difficult industries like you and I are in. It's like they're very personal. Like they bail you out of situations when you need help. For me, it's like when someone buys a piece of real estate, usually it's the most expensive thing they're ever purchasing in their life.
Yep.
So I'm in a very high trust field. Unfortunately, I have a very low barrier of entry to get into real estate. Like you could be done your classes in a few weeks, take your test a few weeks later, and bam, you're in real estate. 6 weeks later, you got a license. You have no idea what the hell you're doing. And then now those people in your life are like, hey, Tim, can you help me buy a $500,000 house? And I'm going to say, hell yes, I can because I'm licensed. But do you really even know what you're doing? But what I will say is that, leading with the value through the email first, but then again, like the networking group we had, I do similar things that you did where I would be like, let's just go get coffee and catch up. Like you and I have done that. I've done that with a lot of people in my life. It's not just people I've known, for a long time that also happen to be in high trust industries like me. Like you meet these people over time. You meet the friend of a friend, you get that cold call, you deliver. And then once you deliver, and you feel like you're both on the same page and that person's like super appreciative, maybe they gave you an amazing Google review, then you have to be the one to take the lead to add them to your SOI, your COI. And you have a different, like they're getting all that drip from me just because they're part of my contacts, but you have to hand select those people and figure out, what do I want to do with them? So like some other things that I do besides the in-person meetings.
Like an additional touch. So they're getting all of that and how you kind of take it to the next step.
I'll try and do like 1 or 2 in-persons a year. I'll usually do at least one handwritten note. Something I'm incorporating that I just incorporated this year, which is fantastic. We're going to have this guest on soon, is I now send quarterly magazines to some of the top people in my life. I think it's about 160 people. So these are like all those high quality, high trust people, as well as like repeat clients, people, the business builders we talked about. So they get this magazine. And then sometimes I'll do a drop off, like a Popeye gift. So that's something that I'm like, I've done before. I've done it through the mail. I'm like looking at that as a different strategy because, we're in November 2023 now. And the market has slowed down because there's inventory issues. There's not enough real estate to buy. Interest rates are high. They're currently at they were at 8% not that long ago. They're around like 7 right now. So you got to get back to basics. And this is really like talking about our sphere of influence, our center of influence. Like,
is that more so like building your funnel, or is that you just want to remain like on these people's radars, or like, what's the intent that you would say, like, by doing that? Like, what's the main goal?
I would say, everyone knows I'm in real estate.
Yep.
Either I've already worked with them or I've worked with someone they know, or they just like know who I am, through stuff that I've done. Whether it's like, I've done some podcast interviews before, I try and stay front and center with like in-person networking. So I know like a lot of people, but honestly, I look at it the same way as I did the email marketing to always lead with value. I do that in my in-person networking too. Even in the handwritten note, I'm just checking in to be like, how are you? Like, how was your summer? How was your holiday season? Whatever it is. I just want to know how they are and let them know that I care, that I'm just reaching out. And then when I'm doing more of my in-person, a lot of what I do, I'm just trying to see what they have going on in their life and what can I help with? Like I have lots of good contacts, you included, that if someone's like, hey, you know what? I'm moving. I'm like, who do you use for insurance? Like, do you have like a trusted relationship, or you just, hey, it's been with Allstate for 10 years and I just never question it.
Yeah.
And if they give me the latter, I'm like, you should talk to my boy, Sean. Like Sean owns his own brokerage. He can custom fit your insurance needs to one of his carriers rather than saying I have a one size fits all. So I usually tell people, it's like, hey, those conversations are just going to be beneficial to your life. And it has nothing to do with real estate. Like they're not buying a house right now. We're just catching up. So leading with value is what I usually like to say. You always want to be going into these things with giving them something that they would appreciate, whether it's the note that tells them you care, the email newsletter that tells them what's going on in and around Philadelphia, or giving them a referral for their insurance. Like that's how I look at all of my touch points.
It's a differentiation too.
Totally.
Right? So like you're doing something above and beyond. You're doing more than any other agent that they would know, or a friend, or, you know, just if you boil it down to just a friend who provides a service.
Yeah.
You're going above and beyond, and you're really carving out and showing people how you're different, why you're different, and letting them know that like you're not just, you're more than a real estate agent.
Yep.
I would say.
Yeah. No, and I would agree with all that. So here's a good segue question. So you and I are both from the Philadelphia area. Grew up in the suburbs, both lived in the city for a little bit, back in the suburbs, have families. Like we know a lot of people.
Yeah.
So it's easier, in my opinion, to keep cultivating, building up your network when you grew up in the market that you work in, because you have history, you have intimate knowledge, like you've lived in different places. So like you're like a true expert. But let's say you're not from Philadelphia, and let's say you're from Tampa, Florida. I'm just gonna throw that out there. So you're moving to Tampa. I'm moving to Tampa next week, let's say.
Yeah.
And I'm in real estate. Like, in your opinion, how would someone get started that isn't from that area that they grew up in, or they were an expert in, and they're starting new? Like, how would you do it? You have no contacts in Tampa. Like, how do you do it?
Craigslist.
Okay.
No.
It's a little weird, but.
We got to be weird, right? You got, you know, purple cow, right? No, I think that if it's someone new to the area, I think it's actually, this is going to sound weird, I think it's almost an advantage to you, right? So you don't know anyone. So you're not like, it's like painting with a blank canvas almost.
Yeah.
And like you can go to any group that you want.
Yep.
You can reach out to anyone that you want. I mean,
almost like sky's the limit to like start building your
because I think
your COI.
I think if you grow up in this area, you're kind of have that reliance of, I'm going to go to my friends and family because it's all like, let's call it like low hanging fruit.
Yeah. And we have them around here, and maybe they're just like us. They've been here forever.
Yeah. And so
you have that trust.
It's like, that's kind of like a crutch almost.
Yeah.
That you use, like, oh, well, you can fall back. Oh, well, I know people. You have like that instant network to kind of like build yourself on. Yep. When you're new, like someone's coming into town, you don't have that. So you really, I think, have the ability to like do everything. You know, I mean, finding your niche, finding who operates in this area. I mean, that's kind of the ideas that I was kind of kicking around before we were even, you know, prior to us coming on, was, you know, finding the people that operate in your space. I think that's like one of the keys that can drive success. And it really doesn't matter what industry you're in, you know, find the operators in your space, reach out. I mean, a lot of times, you know, as well as I know, is so many people are willing to like, give time. You know, if someone were to reach out to you on a cold email, LinkedIn or social media, and said, hey, I saw you on this podcast, you know, could I grab a cup of coffee with you?
Yeah.
What are you going to say?
Yeah, I would say yes. I mean, you're going to know if it's straight up or not straight up. You're going to know if someone's trying to fish, do a cold email
I'm talking about everything being on the up and up.
You're talking about everyone, like someone being straight up and being like, I really enjoyed this episode. Let's say you were talking about sphere of influence, center of influence.
I'm getting into real estate. I saw your thing. I really liked it. You know, could you meet? Would you meet? Give me some ideas.
Well, it's interesting you say that. So like actually right before I came here today, I got a text message from someone I've never met. So obviously I didn't have them.
Scripted.
Yeah, right? So I get a text message and says, I'm such and such.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of joining your brokerage. Can we talk? Which is super humbling to get to a point, at any point when you start a business, that someone recognizes who you are. Maybe they've done a little research. And
wait, did they tell you like how they came to you, or like how they found you, or like what?
I came to find out that they live in the same area that our office is located. So, and again, I haven't even had this call yet. So
Right.
we basically we're texting today because that's how he reached out.
Yeah.
And we're going to chat tomorrow. But to your point, like someone reached out and said, like, I know who you are and I'm reaching out because I'm interested in learning more. Whether it be you as a solo agent, whether that be a business owner or just like a leader in your market, like, yeah, you're going to take that meeting. And to your point, like you can do that in any market.
Yeah.
Like maybe instead of like doing an email campaign to the 500 people, you know, that, like you said, low hanging fruit already have that. They already know you, they already like you, they already trust you. You have that. It's easier to do that, but you could easily go to any market. Let's go back to Tampa and find people on LinkedIn, find people in Facebook groups, find people on meetup.com that are just looking to get together for running or art, or they're foodies, or they go out to the movie, like whatever it is, they're into music. And you can go meet these people by just living your life. And then when you connect with the 2 or 3 that you really like, or the 1 or 2, you're just going to add them to your contacts and take it to the next level. So even if you're not from the area and you're looking to build your SOI, your COI, like that's a great approach. And I agree with that. I think that's a great tip, man.
Yeah. It's literally, there's so many different ways to go about it. And there's not one right way or one wrong way. I think it's like, if you're going out, trying to make the connections, it's easy enough to do that with all of the tools that are out there today.
Yep.
And really just developing relationships. And you're going to know after a couple of people that you reach out to, you're going to know who potentially could drive business, like this banker that I was dealing with recently. I know that he could be a great referral source for our business.
Yep.
And then, hey, could you introduce me to a couple more, once you make that relationship, could you introduce me to a couple more? I mean, it snowballs.
Totally.
And I don't think that being from out of the area, I don't think that should dissuade you, from doing it.
Well said, man. So we're going to end on that note today, folks. So thank you for tuning in again to another episode of Bricks and Risk. Take care. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Bricks and Risk. Our goal is that you walk away with 1 or 2 valuable nuggets, and we greatly appreciate you sharing your time with us today. You can find all BNR episodes on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your podcast content. Until next time, keep learning and keep growing.